Don't be surprised if you don't see someone right away. There's a kind of a time lapse till they get on.
All right.
Hello.
We're going.
All right.
Is
Yeah,
it
I
happening?
think so. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have launched. We have launched. We're out in this world of streaming.
Some people.
Gosh.
Did you see Elon Musk's the rocket booster that SpaceX caught? Some people thought that was
Obviously.
impressive. Really, this is far more impressive
This is far more.
than catching
Are you
that rocket
kidding?
booster.
For three
Oh,
Jews
gosh.
to figure out how to do simultaneously a podcast and stream at the same time.
If this is
It's
working,
nothing short of a miracle.
I'm going to be shocked if
It
it's
is a
actually
miracle.
working. Let's be honest. I'm going to check right now while you're talking.
All right. All right, that'll be good. That'll be good. So
let
before we
me
start,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I want you to see my shirt.
Oh, let's
It's
see.
my Douglas Murray
King
shirt.
on a throne.
King on a throne.
Oh my gosh, that's Douglas Murray sitting on the chair that Sinwar was killed on.
Yeah,
That's
Is that what?
That's incredible.
that's Douglas Murray.
That's what?
It's Douglas
what is
Murray.
it?
It's Douglas Murray sitting in the chair where Sinwar was killed.
Really?
Yeah.
That is
So I made
amazing.
that's
I made a T-shirt out of it.
That's a fan.
It could sell.
I know.
That is a fan.
It can sell.
I just want to bump into Douglas Murray while I'm wearing it. That's all
Oh god.
that's all I really care about in life
That's
at this
hilarious.
point.
Okay, I have no idea if we're actually recording this on Facebook, but whatever. We told everyone we're going live. Hopefully it will work at some point.
It look. I mean,
Do you have
Does it
anybody
look
on
like
there,
it?
Jay? Do you see anybody watching? Because you should be able to tell.
It doesn't say.
There's one or two or three
Let me.
people.
It's not
It'll
good.
pops
It's
up.
okay.
Let me pop
Well-
out the Facebook thing here and see.
Yeah, see what it's saying. We might have to edit this part for the podcast, which is fine.
Says live.
Because I don't see. I'm on his Facebook. I don't see it.
We're headed to Norsham.
Okay, but it's weird because it does say live recording on
Yeah.
ours.
Uh,
Well, let's just start, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
All right.
It's so weird.
I should just spoke so soon.
Yeah, we were so confident.
I
We
know.
were so confident.
I know.
That is
I
the
know.
problem, actually.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a
Um,
second. Hold on a second. Here we go. Hold on a second. Here. All right. So public. Okay.
Oh.
Right? All right. Now, I think Rabbi, you were right. I think it defaulted
Oh, yes. There we go.
to private, but I think now
okay.
Okay, now I see it. It's
you see
it's
it
good.
now. All right. All right.
Yes. Hi, everyone. We
All
are
right.
live on
It works.
Facebook. It worked.
Oh, it works.
We'll have to edit the beginning since that's a bit.
No,
of an
no. I
awkward,
think
opening.
people. We got to keep it real for the people.
That's true. That's true.
You know,
Okay.
they can't think that.
So we're on now?
Yeah.
Yes, we're
we
on.
can't. We don't
You
want to.
sure?
We don't want to give the illusion that we're perfect in every way. Just
That's
even though
true.
all of our podcasts would give people that
Are
impression.
perfect.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally. I want to just introduce people to what we're doing here because I think some people are going to be new to this. But this is our weekly podcast called edJEWcation. And many of you know me. I'm ChayaLeah. I'm here with my father and our good friend Jay, who is in Rhode Island. And we have a weekly podcast where we talk about different concepts and ideas in Judaism and Jewish peoplehood and the Torah and Parsha. And we just go through all different kinds of topics. But today we're doing something a little different because my father and I just got back from a trip literally just 2 days ago. We went on a long planned trip. We've been talking about this trip for, I don't know how long, 4 years at least, but kind of a lifetime. And we just came back from Poland and Israel. And so we wanted an opportunity to kind of unpack the trip, talk about it a little bit. There were a lot of questions that people had. And so we thought, why not share it with our friends? My father has a, nice audience on Facebook, and hopefully people are tuning in, and we'll, if you have other questions that we didn't answer, feel free to send us messages and emails. So that's what we're doing here tonight. This will also be released as a podcast on our regular podcast stream on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and through our Substack. So follow us if you care to.
Of course,
but
they,
yeah,
of course they care.
Of course,
to.
they want to.
Everybody cares to. I mean, they just have to be exposed once, and they're hooked.
That's true.
We're like the heroin of podcasts. You try it once,
I'm sure that is true.
Forget it. You live with us forever.
I'm sure that is true. Correct. Okay, so I don't know how we want to structure the conversation, but do you want to start with questions and we'll
I guess
from there?
Yeah. So I guess to start off, it probably makes sense for Rabbi to talk a little bit about his connection to the Holocaust and to Poland, so people have that context.
Yes.
Yeah, because the first thing people ask us is why.
Right.
I mean, why Poland? I mean, you're going to go to one city in Europe. There's a lot of other cities that are a lot prettier than Warsaw and more exciting. But if anybody knows our history of our family, my family specifically, on my side, both my mother and my father were born in Poland and raised in Poland. And as far as I know, we go way back for centuries living in Poland. So that would have been kind of enough to arouse a certain sense of curiosity to where we come from and what my parents' life was like before they moved to Canada. They got to Canada. But of course, added to that, they were both Holocaust survivors, both my father and my mother. My father did not go through the same circumstance that my mother did. He ended up in Russia during the war, but he lost everyone, all his family. He was left with his sisters, his brother, his parents, a family that he had before the war. He was all alone. My mother, on the other hand, survived, and her sister and a brother survived, but her experience was much different than my father's. She was in the Lodz ghetto from 1939, when the Germans set up the ghetto, till its liquidation in 1944. And in 1944, she was transported from the Lodz ghetto to Auschwitz. And then from Auschwitz, after Auschwitz was closed down, they sent her to Bergen-Belsen in Germany, where she was liberated on April 15th, 1945. So the Holocaust has always been a profound impact, has always had a profound impact on my life and subsequently on my children's lives. And I've always had a strong curiosity about what was it like being there. Now, I've been exposed to the Holocaust through museums and films and books and pictures and stories. Yes, and that's all true. And a lot of people say, that's enough. I mean, what do you have to actually go back there for? There's nothing left there. But there's always this sense of wanting to know and wanting to stand in the very same place that my parents stood. And that drove us to arrange a trip to Poland. The idea started before COVID. COVID shut it down, but was recently resurrected, and we did it. And that's why Poland.
So, I guess let's talk about the trip, and do you want to go in chronological order? Or is there a better?
Well, I just wanted to add there's one other aspect of the trip that we ended up in Israel.
Right.
ChayaLeah had mentioned at the beginning, because we didn't want to spend Shabbos in Poland. There's not much to do there for Shabbos in Poland. And then we have one of my children lives in Israel. He joined us in Poland, and we decided to go back to Israel, where our trip would take us, a substantial boost in I would say, I don't know, fun, enjoyment. I don't know. Whatever Israel is, it is. And it's far removed from Poland. So we ended up on a high where Poland was very heavy, very, very heavy. Maybe I'll just start, and then ChayaLeah, you kick in and,
sure,
just add. So we flew to Warsaw on Saturday night. We left Los Angeles and arrived in Krakow late Sunday evening. It's an 11-hour flight from LA to Warsaw. So it got us there early evening. We collected our luggage, went through security, and boarded another plane for another maybe 45 minutes to Krakow. And in Krakow, we landed at about 7:30 in the evening. We collected our luggage, and if I remember correctly, we took taxis. How did we get to our hotel?
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I think
We took a taxi.
we took a taxi, and we ended up in our hotel, which was a very nice hotel,
Yeah.
the Helena Rubinstein Hotel. It was Helena Rubinstein. For those who don't know, was like, I guess, a makeup person. I mean, she had owned a company. This was her home. They eventually turned this into a pretty neat hotel. And there's one kosher restaurant in Krakow where two of my sons that came earlier from New York went there and bought out the restaurant, basically. I mean, there was falafel and pizza and this and that and a whole bunch of stuff. So by the time we got there in the hotel, we were starving. We didn't have food all day. So, I mean, okay, didn't have food for 2 hours, but we didn't have food. We didn't have food like it felt like all day. So we sat down to very cold pizza and and cold falafel plates, but we didn't care because we were in Krakow. Now, the weather in Krakow was typical Polish winter, freezing.
Yeah.
It was freezing. I mean, we had our winter coats on, but we didn't expect, coming from California, we didn't expect it to be this cold, but it was this cold. And that started our trip. Here we are, all 8 of us in Krakow, and then we went to bed, and in the morning we met our tour guide, or did we meet her the night before? I don't remember.
This is
exactly
a high level of detail, but go for it. Yes.
We met her.
We're going on a trip with you guys.
You're going literally. You're going to go through I'm going through every meal.
What was for breakfast? No, I'm just kidding.
We'll get to breakfast.
Oh, we're not there yet. Sorry. Okay.
We're not there yet because and then the Monday morning, bright and early, we were at like 7:30. We had breakfast and we were ready to start our trip. So, Chayla, you can pick it up from there.
So, did you go? So, was Auschwitz the first day?
Yes.
Yes,
wow,
it was.
That's literally the first thing we did.
That's a hell of a way.
It was a hell of a way to start.
We figured, let's get the hardest part over first.
Yeah.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Right.
Why do it slowly but surely? Just give it one good rip. Let's go to Auschwitz then spend the rest of the time, thinking, hey, how does this compare to Auschwitz? Because that's really the elephant in the room.
Yeah, sure.
Really. So
it was surreal.
Ahead.
I mean, even just driving in the morning, that first morning, I think we were all kind of lost in thought in a way because we were so shocked to find ourselves in Poland. And it was so, even just the first time we saw the sign, for where on the way to Auschwitz, and then they gave us tickets. You have to buy a ticket to get into Auschwitz. You have to pay. I mean, just that holding that ticket with my name on it, like it says Auschwitz Birkenau with ChayaLeah.
You would think you get a group of tsitsi yarmulke wearing people with the big beards. And that would be enough to get a comp. I would.
No.
I mean, I was going to say, look, last time our family was here, they didn't pay to get in here. I mean, so why should we have to pay?
It felt really weird to pay. Honestly, it did feel weird.
Pay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sacred blood here.
Yeah.
But you know what? No pay, no play.
That's right.
So we paid and we got our tickets.
Yeah, and
we entered.
Walking around that first few minutes around Auschwitz was, I have to say, was really breathtaking. I mean, it was just, you recognize a lot of it, from movies or from pictures that you've seen. And it's the real thing, sitting there in front of you, and you're really confronted with the reality of what happened in this place. I mean, I feel like, I've been very exposed to the Holocaust. I taught Holocaust history for many years in high school. But when you stand there and you see the places and you're standing on the ground, it's just different. I'll never think of it the same way that I did before. And the
iconic sign.
Yeah.
The sign, Arbeit macht frei,
right,
which you see over and over and over again in Auschwitz. And I always thought that these were the trains that when the Jews came, that was the sign that they saw coming into Auschwitz, Arbeit macht frei. Turns out it wasn't.
Right.
You learned something new that day. But just standing by that sign
and that means work makes you free, right?
Yeah.
Works makes you free.
I do want to say one interesting thing about Auschwitz that I had no idea, and I think this will surprise people. So we had a tour guide that we brought from Israel to take us around Poland for the week. She was required to have alongside of her a Polish tour guide with us the whole time that we were at Auschwitz, because the Poles have a certain narrative of what happened there and the story of the Holocaust in general, but more specifically at the camps. And they like to control the messaging of what people are hearing when you get to Auschwitz. So if you pull up to Auschwitz, you can't just walk around on your own. You have to register with them. You have to go on an official tour with them. And yeah, if you bring your own tour guide, that's fine, but you will have somebody following you around the whole, and he did. It was a Polish guy. He followed us around the whole day. And a couple of times he inserted himself into this story, and, he defended the Poles. Like at one point when we were like, how are they living right there? Like, and he was like, no. They, he kind of defended.
Oh, they moved back after the war. They moved back.
It's their homes.
They didn't know.
Yeah. Like
now, it's a bit confusing. So we had two Polish guides with us in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
One was our tour guide that came with us. He was like sort of our, what was he? Logistics.
Yeah.
So he took care of everything in Poland. That was one, which you have to have.
Right. He was with us the whole week. Yeah.
And then second, on top of that, you had another Polish guide specifically for Auschwitz. And our tour guide told us that once she made some disparaging remarks, not willingly, but she talked about Polish collaboration.
Yeah.
And they fined her.
Yeah.
The authorities took her in.
They fined your guide?
Fined her. Yes.
Yeah.
They fined her because she made disparaging remarks about Poland, which was illegal in Poland. Poland views themselves as victims as much as the Jews.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
We were victims of the Nazis. We didn't have anything to do with this. If there was anything that was done, it was only because we were forced to do it, and we knew nothing about this. I mean, our Auschwitz guide, not our logistics guide, told me, because I said, look, the houses are here, told me that the Germans came in and they cleared 40 kilometers around Auschwitz, so no one could live there. But I don't believe that's true.
Right.
I don't believe that's true, because I believe that Poles lived closer to Auschwitz than within 40 kilometers. Now, if you tell me they did maybe 1 or 2 kilometers, I could understand, but they didn't clear out 40 kilometers northwest, east, and south, so no one knew what was going on in Auschwitz. They knew quite well what was going on in Auschwitz, and
exactly.
Either they didn't care what was going on, or they said to themselves, "There's nothing we could do about it." What are we going to do about it? But like ChayaLeah said, the Poles want to control the narrative that we were also victims, and we had nothing to do with this. This was totally a German Nazi compound, built by the Nazis, run by the Nazis, perpetrated by the Nazis, and we were victims as well as you were.
And both those things can be true, right? I mean,
wow.
I mean, they can both have been Nazi collaborators, and I mean, the Polish were definitely victims of the Nazis. I mean, for
right.
sure,
oh, that's true.
No question.
That's true.
Yeah,
but to find people because they dare to tell both sides of the story is, you're not doing yourself any favors. But
it was interesting.
No, it's
one of the things that I felt very strongly. I mean, we could talk about it more and we're not going to go minute by minute. Everyone calm down. Goldie already commented on our live that we don't need to go minute by minute, so we can speed it up. But I took a picture we took a picture of all 8 of us under the Arbeit macht frei, and we tagged it as Revenge Tour 2024. And it really felt like that walking through Auschwitz, because there was this moment where, and if you know my family, we love to laugh, we are irreverent, we are cynical,
very optimistic.
Yeah,
as our guy kept saying, you're a very optimistic family.
It's true. But, we love to have a good laugh, and we don't take many things seriously. But you're standing in Auschwitz. My grandmother spent time there as a prisoner. My great grandparents were murdered there. I mean, many of our family members were murdered there.
And
And
grandparents.
your
Oh, I'm sorry.
grandparents,
My
right?
grandparents. Yes.
So
Yes.
you can't help but be very, very serious, even even people like us. But there was this moment where we were walking, all 8 of us together, and we were kind of in the back of Birkenau, which is the second part of Auschwitz, and it was empty besides for us, and it was gray and it was cold, and we had just been to a very difficult spot there where we know for a fact that my grandmother had spent time. And as we were walking away from that area, I don't remember exactly what happened, but something funny happened. And one of my brothers made a funny comment, made a joke, and we all burst out laughing. And I promise you, I felt like that moment was so healing. And I know that sounds very woo-woo and it's not our style, but I felt that because we stood there and I felt we have won. Like it was a terrible, atrocity what occurred there. But here we are standing, 8 of us, proud Jews, Orthodox Jews. My father, the only child of the 2 parents, his father and his mother. He had 6 children. Between the 6 of us, we have, 20 plus grandchildren with more on the way, please God, in a few months. And I just couldn't help but feel in that moment of like laughter in this hell that we were living in. I felt a sense of revenge and justice. And like, I thought to myself in that, I just thought like, I hope my great grandparents can hear us and see us right now. Right. Like we're here, we're visiting. Did you feel that, Todd? Because I felt that.
At the end of the day, we won.
Yeah.
You hurt us, you bloodied us,
yeah.
You knocked us down. But at the end of the day, we're here and you're not.
Right.
And that felt vindicating. Vindicating. That felt definitely vindicating. I just wanted to say that as much as I knew about Auschwitz and as much as I was told about Auschwitz and my mother talked about it, there's nothing to prepare you for it.
Yeah.
Especially one spot. You talked about the spot we all walked together. I remember the guard tower when she took us up in Birkenau to the top of this guard tower that oversaw the entire camp. And just the magnitude. I mean, they were able to hold 100,000 people there at the one time.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when you're putting 16 people in one bed, it's a lot easier. You don't need that many bunks. This is not summer camp in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But 16 people in one bed. But even with that, and understanding that 100,000 people is a lot of people, and they were able to to house that many. Just the vastness of it, the enormity of it. What went down over there, and and even though we know that there was a 1.1 million people, killed in Auschwitz, the number doesn't mean anything because you can't understand what 1.1 million people mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What that doesn't even mean. That's like maybe twice the city of Long Beach.
Yeah.
Gone. Just gone. So the numbers are hard to wrap your head around. But when you're standing in the very same place where your mother was when she was, emptied out of the cattle car, it's very heavy. It was very, very heavy.
Did you think Auschwitz would be the hardest part for you?
No.
You didn't think so?
No.
And I don't think it was.
I didn't think Auschwitz would be the hardest part because Auschwitz is more of an idea than anything. And they make that into it. I mean, because the Auschwitz one is a museum.
Right.
I mean, you could be in Washington or you could be in in Jerusalem at Yad Vashem. That's what they did to Auschwitz one. Auschwitz two is more authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, they left the bunkers there, and the railway track is still there, and there's still a remnants of a crematorium a little bit.
Yeah.
The showers, the gas chambers, they destroyed most of them, but one is still around. So that felt more authentic, but it's still, the numbers were too great, and so I didn't think that Auschwitz would be the most heaviest. It was heavy, and I'm glad we did it day one, but I didn't think that would be the hardest part.
I thought it was really weird that they have a gift shop there. I'm just going to say that. It felt really
souvenirs.
Weird.
That is
souvenirs.
It was.
That is.
Now, I did buy things. I'm not going to lie, but I thought it was really weird that there were gift shops.
Was there a shirt that said "My whole family was murdered here, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt"?
That would be appropriate actually, because like it just felt weird to buy. But I bought a couple things.
That is very strange. That is very strange.
It is strange. Yeah. It is strange.
Yeah. But I think that set the tone for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the solemnness.
So
of the place.
When you went, were you able to actually see the showers and in those areas and the bunks and the crematoria?
Yeah. Well, the crematoria is destroyed.
The crematoria is mostly destroyed.
Okay.
They tried to cover up. I mean, the Nazis tried to cover up their crimes, so they destroyed the crematoria. There is a little bit left, of the place where they led people there. I mean, that was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that was hard. Where she explained, when the trains came in, and the Nazis immediately separated you from your family, and left, right. Left meant you go to work, right meant you go to the gas chambers. That was hard because we walked down the place where the people that were sent to the gas chambers were. So walking down that and trying to visualize in your head my grandparents walking here, for the final time, my mother and her sister, being separated from them, scared. They didn't know what was going to go, what was going on. And the waiting room is still around. You can still see the hooks of where they hung their clothes, where they waited. But the actual crematorium are gone. And one place, like one shower room, only the Nazis kept, only because the Russians were bombing and they wanted to save themselves. So they kept one shower room where they huddled. But that's about it from that perspective of the showers and the crematorium. And other concentration camps we'll get to, they're still intact.
Okay.
And then we did go visit them there.
Yeah. Auschwitz was hard. It was really, I mean, there's nothing else to say. What's there to say? It's a horrible place. It's a big graveyard. And I don't know if I'll ever go back there. I don't know. I feel like you see it once, maybe that's enough.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for going back.
Yeah. And it's funny. Not funny, but it's interesting because, I think all Israeli teenagers in regular public schools in Israel take a trip at some point during high school to visit Poland. And so while we were there were a few groups of Israeli teenagers, big groups, like, whatever, how many kids, but they were there as well. And I just couldn't help but think about, after a year that they've had in Israel and the things that they've experienced and seen this past year, I was just so interested to kind of see their reaction to a place like Auschwitz. These are younger kids. They don't have, their grandparents are not survivors. Maybe they knew a great grandparent, but it's already another generation removed. And, they have their own kind of new story of tragedy that they are going to be telling themselves. And I was very interested in I was thinking about that a lot that day. And it's just, I don't know, it made me angry. Like I felt angry, we've just been through so much and it's enough. And I
wonder if
sad and anger.
I wonder if for the Israeli kids who are there, they can look at what a time when Jews couldn't defend themselves.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that's the story.
That's the idea of bringing them there.
Yeah.
To show, hey, you know what? Look, this is what happens when there's no Israel.
Yeah.
Right.
When we are like someone had once, described it to me. We were like a stray dog.
Yeah.
With no owner.
Yeah.
And anybody that wanted to abused us. We had no home, nowhere to go, and no one would take us in.
Yeah,
and now we have Israel. So, we have to fight for that country. We have to persevere. Look how important it is, because if we don't have it, this is the end result of what happens to us.
No, definitely very true.
Okay,
let's move on to the next day.
We'll move on from Auschwitz. We're very hungry.
Oh my God.
Okay, after Auschwitz, we're very, very hungry. So they provided lunch for us.
Was there was there no ice cream at Auschwitz?
There was, but we did not have any. Okay.
Of course there was.
There's a stand outside of Auschwitz. That was a stand, right?
There was a stand right outside.
Of ice cream and others.
Yeah.
But we didn't partake, for not kosher.
No, and we were embarrassed. I mean, I felt nauseous, so I wasn't, even if I wanted ice cream, I don't think I could have had ice cream at that moment. No. But we had a beautiful dinner at a museum in Krakow, and it was a very lovely end to the day. And then after my parents went to sleep.
Was Auschwitz all day?
Yeah, that was all day. And then after my parents
Can I ask?
left,
Can I ask one more question? Did they have were the names of the ice cream? Did they like were they tied into the Auschwitz experience somehow?
Yeah.
Oh my
Creamsicle.
God. It's good you weren't on the trip with us. This
would not have.
Jay mentioned the word names. I just wanted to say, in Auschwitz, they collected most of the names of the people that passed through, and you can look up your family members. So we looked up Perelmuter. There was tons and tons of Perelmuters, not related. And my mother's maiden name was Zeltzer, and there were hundreds, literally hundreds of Zeltzers that went by there.
Well, they were related. Why are you saying not related?
All the Perelmuters?
No, not all of them, but some of them.
No,
we found your grandparents and your uncle.
Yeah, my grandparents and this. But and when with the Zeltzers, we found family members there, and that's
that was hard to.
You don't get over it. You don't get over it. But we did go back to Krakow. We had a nice meal at the beautiful museum in Krakow. And then we went to bed, and my children.
Yes.
Go ahead, ChayaLeah. What did you do?
We hung out. We went to an establishment that serves beverages. And
where?
Outside. We didn't tell you.
I was there. I came outside to sit with you.
Yeah.
We ordered a Jewish coffee.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
We ordered the Jewish coffee. Okay. I forgot about that. The
actual worst coffee ever.
That was a hate crime. That was an actual anti-Semitic hate crime.
I don't know what
was
in there, but it was literally taking a glass of water and pouring mud into it.
Dirt. And then you're supposed to drink it. It's called Jewish coffee. So I was excited. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, Jewish coffee. That sounds amazing because Jews are amazing. Coffee's great. Like, what could go wrong? It was the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted.
Did you get a non-Jewish coffee so you could compare and contrast?
I mean,
oh my God.
I mean, could you imagine if just like the normal coffee is like the best cup of coffee you ever had in your life, and the Jewish coffee is just trash?
I would not be surprised.
Then that was the worst.
It was disgusting. But I will say that. So the next day we woke up, I'm just going to speed it up a little bit because otherwise we'll be here for 2 weeks talking about this. The next day we toured Krakow all morning, which was super interesting and I found extremely creepy. And I'll let my father say a little bit more about that, but I'll just give you like sort of an outline of what happened. Across from our hotel, we were staying in like the old Jewish quarter of Krakow. So if anybody who's watching and listening has been there, you know exactly the area we're talking about. And so there's a shul there that's about how many years old? Is it 500 years old?
Oh, at least.
The Ramah. So there was a famous Ashkenazi rabbi, Moshe Isserles, and he has
more, like 700.
Oh, 700 years?
Right, yeah, pretty sure. 1500s.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. Okay. Yeah. So his shul.
Who's the Ramah?
Who is he? He was a
No. My son label can ask.
Some of us weren't as up to, date with who everyone was as my father was. So, he assumed that we knew everything, what everyone's name was, but some of us needed a little more information. Thank God for Wikipedia. But we went to visit his shul.
Don't trust Wikipedia.
I know, it's true. But for this kind of stuff, I think it's okay. It's not on Israel. But we went to his shul, and right behind his shul is a cemetery where he's buried, along with, it's a hundreds of years old cemetery. So you just see all kinds of great headstones, graves. One of the most meaningful moments for me of the trip was this one moment in that cemetery where my father told us a story that we grew up hearing our whole lives. We all knew the story. But the people that it happened to are buried in that cemetery right next to each other. And so my father told us this old Hasidic story. We don't need to tell it now because maybe we'll tell it another time, but it's about this miser that doesn't matter. But he gets buried in the cemetery next to this famous rabbi. And my father tells us a story in front of those two graves. And that was such an emotional moment for me because it just reminded me that there was so much Jewish history here, so much of who we are as Hasidim, as Ashkenazi Jews. I mean, our whole sort of identity comes from this place that we're standing in. And it was a very overwhelming feeling for me. I don't know. Did that touch you at all?
Oh, very much. The cemetery, is one thing.
Yeah.
And great people are buried there. I mean, great rabbis, Taisvas Yontev,
Yeah.
commentary on the Mishnah, the Bach, commentary on the Talmud, and everything. I mean, just great people are just incredibly holy people are buried there. And well, we knew that. And it was nice to see the cemetery, and it was nice to see the shul that Rabbi ChayaLeah, he was maybe one of the greatest, codifiers of Jewish law that we have in our history. But what got me more than anything was the Jewish quarters that she kept referring to, that we're in the Jewish quarters of where the Jews lived. And the Jews came to Krakow, in the 1400s, 1400s. The king invited them in, was very good to them. He let them set up shop, and they lived there and they prospered there. And now, imagine, Jay, if you came to New York and you went to Borough Park, where it was like full of Jewish establishments, butcher shops and restaurants and shuls, and you're there and you're looking around and everything seems very normal. I mean, it's a Jewish neighborhood, but there's no Jews. None. Zero.
Yeah.
No Jews in Krakow. I mean, when I say no Jews in Krakow, I mean there's no substantial community. There may be 100 Jews living in Krakow at the time, but everything in that neighborhood stayed Jewish.
Souls,
I mean, you go there and you look like bus or kosher meat. There's no kosher meat. They're not selling kosher meat.
It just says it. It's so weird.
It just says it.
Really?
The books in Hebrew, bookstore. But of course, there's no bookstore. I mean, it's not a Jewish bookstore anymore, but it says it.
Yeah.
And you're standing there and you're saying, I'm standing in a Jewish quarter. I'm looking around. I say, oh, look, fantastic. There's 3 restaurants in this area. No, there's no restaurants in this area. They just left it there as is. It's like it's an Alice in Wonderland moment because you're standing in the Jewish quarter with no Jews. With no Jews.
With the most beautiful souls. You just can see.
Beautiful,
you can see what a rich Jewish
souls.
life there was, and yet there's no one there.
Krakow was pretty much spared during the war. The Allies didn't bomb Krakow, so the buildings are still pretty much intact. Yeah. And you go into a coffee house, like we got coffee in this one coffee house, it was a shul. Yeah. And you still see all of the writings, the pictures on the walls of the shul. Yeah. And you're sitting there and you think, what the what's going on over here?
Does the government have laws about knocking down that architecture, or?
No, I think they did this intentionally because they want people like the Perelmuters and the Jays of the world to come and visit. Yeah. I think this is a moneymaker to them. Yeah. This is like, oh, first of all, look. We always loved the Jews. Look, we didn't do anything to the Jews. We kept the ghetto. We have nothing against the Jews. And number 2, I think this is a moneymaker for them. Yeah. That people come and they visit and they tour, and it's not only for Jews, but we saw in next to our hotel there was a restaurant that had cholent on the menu. Yeah, I mean cholent. Yeah, I mean Jews don't even like cholent. I know. I mean, they had cholent on the menu, and then when we went to at night after our tour guide left us, we went down. There was music playing in the restaurant outside.
A non-kosher
Jewish music,
right? A non-kosher place.
Fiddler on the roofs, this and that. So to them, this is like the best of all worlds. Jewish culture with no Jews.
That's what it felt like.
How can you beat that? How can you beat that? So I think they did that intentionally. So that was strange in Krakow. Because in other cities that we visited wasn't the same. Yeah. They pretty much erased all remnants of Jewish history. But here in Krakow, they preserved it.
While you were in Krakow, did you see any other identifiable Jews?
I have visitors.
A couple.
We saw those 2 guys in the morning.
A couple of them.
And we're looking at a couple of visitors that come, but not
a big. I thought we would see way more Jews, but we didn't. Not anywhere. It was very weird.
And did the people respond to you in any way?
The Polish?
Like the natives. Yeah.
The natives, I always felt they looked at us with curiosity. Yeah. Like, you're here? Yeah. I thought we got rid of you. I mean, what happened? I mean, I wouldn't say with disdain. I mean, no one said anything to us with disdain, but they looked at us with like curiosity that, there are still people like this? Yeah. I mean, we read about them in the history books that they once lived here and now they're here. So that's what I felt all the way through our trip.
Yeah.
Getting those stares from people.
It's like living in Disneyland and being surprised that Mickey Mouse shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Exactly.
In fact, I forgot where it was, maybe in Warsaw, but two of my brothers were standing outside, and my brothers have beards and kippas and tzitzis, and a guy walked over to them and said, Are you guys really Jewish? And my brothers were like, yeah. He's like, oh, I've never seen Jews before. I mean,
that was in Krakow?
I don't remember. I think that might have happened in Warsaw or Lublin, maybe in Lublin. I don't remember where we were, but they came inside the hotel. They were like, that was awkward.
Oh, yeah.
We were like, yeah, we're really Jewish
wow.
and we still exist. Yeah, it's interesting.
It reminded me of in Auschwitz when I was walking down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
A lady was walking up the stairs. I think this was a Polish lady. And she says to me, I apologize for everything for you.
Yeah.
Those were exact words. I apologize for everything for you.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you very much, and kept walking.
Yeah.
And, thought to myself, well, so 80 years too late.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciated the sentiment, but which is going to get us to the first, when we do the book club on the sunflower, that issue is going to come up. I apologize for you for everything.
Right.
So I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. We visited, after Krakow, we went to a few other little towns. We went to a place called Lankut, which had the most beautiful shul I have ever seen. And I've been to a lot of beautiful shuls, but this was spectacular. And this is a place that has 0 Jews there now. 0. And that was just heartbreaking, I think, in a way that I was surprised. And then we went to, I'm trying to remember everything, but we went to this one place that was, oh my God, it's called Tarnov. And it's a town where the Nazis basically took 800 children into the forest outside of the town, and they dug a pit and they dumped the children alive into the pit and covered it. And over about 3 days, all the kids died. Ugh. And the reason we know about it is because there was a Polish teenager who wasn't Jewish who watched it happen. And he said, I'm going to mark this place so that when the Jews come back, they'll know what happened to their children. And he told the story of what happened. So it's marked. The grave is marked. That place was.
The mothers are buried.
And their mothers were killed. They were in another pit
next to them and buried in a large grave, but the children's grave is. Yeah. That may have been. Yeah. The worst. That may have been really the worst part of it. Yeah. I mean, that was devastating. The children of Tarnov, where the people in the town, not in the town, but people said that they heard crying for days. Yeah. They heard crying.
Yeah, until they all died.
I mean, you think about it, Jay. We live in a society where we think that people are humane. Yeah. Where is your humanity? I mean, forget about anything. You want to kill them, kill them. Right. Hey, kill them. But to allow them to die like this, where's your soul? Mm-hmm. They had no soul. I mean, the Nazis literally had no soul. Yeah. I want to call them animals, because animals don't do this. Yeah. And a lion is not going to dig up a grave and just kick a zebra into the grave and cover him, and then call all of his friends and say, "Hey, let's see the zebra moan and groan for a few days before we eat him." No animal does this. Yeah. So I would not call them animals. They're monsters. Yeah. Yeah. Only monsters can do this.
There's a difference between being a murderer and a sadist.
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally. It's like I can to some degree understand a murderer, but to be a sadist is a whole other thing.
It's unfathomable.
Yeah, it was unfathomable. That's the word. I don't know what other word there is.
Yeah, unfathomable.
From there, we went to the grave of one of the biggest Hasidic, rebbes or leaders. Called Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, who was a student of the Maggid, correct? He was a contemporary of the first Chabad Rebbe. And there, it was really interesting. We got there at night. It was snowing. It was super quiet. And you come into this, you're middle of nowhere, Poland. And we come in and it's built up beautifully. They have like a beautiful room built around the grave, and there's like gold and chandeliers, and it's a really interesting place. And we ran into another family who was doing a similar tour as us, and they had a guy with a guitar with them. And so they were singing. And so we spent some time there, doing some davening, praying. We sang with them. That was like a very special moment. And then across the street from there, there's a group of Hasidim built like a rest stop, like a hostel kind of. Yeah, hostel, where you can go in and you can get soup and hot water, and you can use the bathrooms
with soup
with soup nuts.
Soup nuts. I just want to make sure you remember that, because I was carrying around a box of soup nuts like it was like, okay, we're not. The war's ended. You know that.
So can I ask you a technical question?
Sure.
So you said you were davening, but in a situation like that, what prayers do you say? Do you say the Mourner's Kaddish, or what do you?
No, you say Psalms.
Psalms.
You say from the book of Psalms.
Okay.
Yeah, you say the book of Psalms. You could say Kaddish is said only when there's a minion.
Right.
So we didn't have a minion there.
Okay.
Right.
But we say usually when you go to the graveside of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, you say Psalms.
Right.
Okay. I guess you were like, what, 4 sons away from having a minion?
Yeah.
Well, we might have had 10.
There might have been a
10
minion there.
Together, but we didn't make a minion.
Yeah.
But the singing was something special.
Oh,
the singing
I'm sure.
was really
beautiful.
nice.
It was.
And he played a beautiful guitar, and he had a beautiful voice. And we just lucked out because we just happened upon them.
Yeah, our family would not sing if it was just us. So we were happy that they were there. Even though I try, but my family makes me stop. And
we tried, but they said to us, why don't you listen? You guys are better at listening, much better at listening.
Oh my God. So we left there and ended up spending the night in a place called Lublin, in a city, which is also a very famous Jewish city, Lublin. And in the morning, we went to visit a yeshiva that existed. It was not ancient because it was from the 20th century, but it was called Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin. And it was the place where a famous Rabbi Meir Shapira, started the yeshiva, right?
Right.
And it was like the Harvard of yeshivas, like the top students came there. My father grew up with a rabbi in Montreal who studied in that yeshiva. This was like really like a Harvard, if you got to compare,
Harvard before October 7th.
Yeah, before it was anti-Semitic, but it was like the top students went to this yeshiva. And so we went there and also got to learn. I didn't really know much about it. So it was interesting to find out and, to see the students. And one of the things that really struck me there, and I'm sure my father will add something, is that, my 4 sons all went to yeshiva. Some of them are still in yeshiva. And it's so similar. I mean, my father's going to laugh at me and make fun of me, and he'll say, no, it's not. But it really is. I mean, the boys in the pictures look like the way my sons look in yeshiva. They're studying the same texts, maybe not at the same level, but they're studying the same exact text. They have the same schedule. It was so, I felt this like energy of rejuvenation being there, because I said, I wanted to say to the ghosts in that yeshiva, like, it didn't end with you. Like, there are yeshivas today that are huge, that with hundreds and thousands of students, and we've continued teaching Talmud. We've continued your legacy of teaching Jewish law and everything. And I felt that, I don't know, I was surprised. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to like cut it out of our itinerary when I saw it, but I'm so happy we went there, because it really gave me a sense of like continuity, that even though that yeshiva was destroyed and the students, I'm sure most of them were killed in the Holocaust.
Many survived because
they ran away. They ran away.
They got visas and they left.
Yeah.
So many did survive.
But the Jewish community in Lublin is gone. I mean, there's no Jewish community there.
Jews anymore in Lublin, which had many Jews.
Yeah,
many Jews. When we talk about scholarship, and I'm not disagreeing with ChayaLeah that yeshiva is yeshiva and they learn, but they estimate that besides the 6 million people, Jews, that the Nazis killed, they probably also destroyed over 50 to 100 million Jewish books.
Wow.
That they had burnt, through the ghettos and book burnings and lost, so books are a culture. Books are the recorders of a culture. So not only did he kill the people, but he literally destroyed an entire culture that lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. Gone. We're gone. And I know that yeshiva was one of the repositories of a tremendous library. Tens of thousands of books were in that yeshiva. Gone. There were a few that survived that we saw that they were still in yeshiva that we were able to pick up and to read from. But the vast majority of books, history, gone. We don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. And then we went on to visit Majdanek, which is another concentration camp, which I was also really unprepared for because I didn't know much about Majdanek, to be honest. And I think because it wasn't really part of my family story, I never paid too much attention to it. I hate to say it, but that's kind of true. And it was, in a way, worse than Auschwitz, I think, because it's much more intact and it's in middle of the city of Lublin. I mean, you stand there and it's like houses and businesses and are right there. Like there's no way that they didn't see what was going on inside the camp. And the way that the camp is set up, you can just like walk through like what a prisoner would have experienced when they came there. And you go from like, the entry where they would be separated from their parents or whatever to where they would get undressed to, where the gas chambers are like right there. Cause at that camp, like if they were going to the gas chambers, they went right away and they were done, and then there are the barracks and then the crematorias in the back. And it was very cold. Like the mood lighting was on point, like it was cloudy, it was gray, it was a little rainy. And that day, that was really hard. It was, I don't know. It was terrible. I don't know how to explain.
I want to explain something for the audience that may not know this. The Germans built two types of camps. Camp number one was an extermination camp, solely for the intent of bringing people there and murdering them. There was no work camp there. 4 of those camps were built in Poland. All of those camps, the 4 of those camps were completely destroyed. They wiped out any memory of those camps. So you don't see Belzec and Sobibor and I think Treblinka and one more and Belzec I mentioned. There were 4 death camps. Others, they had set up literally hundreds of little concentration camps around. Some were bigger. Where we were in Majdanek, it was not a death camp to begin with. It was a work camp, where you came there and you worked. But eventually, there were so many Jews that they couldn't fit them in all of in the death camps. So they turned some of these work camps into death camps. Ultimately, so I say the word only, and everyone's gonna crack. 80,000 people were killed at Majdanek. Only 80,000 were killed at Majdanek. But it stayed intact. So you actually saw the crematoriums, you actually saw the gas chambers, you actually saw everything, and you walked, like ChayaLeah said, you walked from the place of when you were taken off the trains to the wherever your barracks were into there. So
tell him about the bathtub.
Oh, the bathtub.
Because I think that was
the commandant of Majdanek, who was another monster. They decided that why should the crematoriums were heated up and there was fire, so why should all that gas go to waste? So he built himself a bathtub in the next door room where while the people were burning the bodies of the dead victims, he would take a hot bath
every day.
Every day. He would sit there bathing while literally next door to him, they were bringing in these dead bodies and burning them in a crematorium. This is the level of barbarism that took place there. Who could have believed this? Who could believe this? That this was going on? That was shocking. Very, very shocking.
Oof.
And then I'll say quickly the next part, which why are we reliving this pain? But I guess we're tearing open the wounds, but it's okay. We went to.
We're only doing this for our listeners. Because otherwise, to live this through. To see this again
Go closer to your microphone just so we can hear you. We went to visit the city of Ger, where my grandparents, my grandmother was from a family that were Ger Chassidim, and that was very interesting. And then we went to Lodz, and we went to, I've skipped a very important part. So my grandmother was from a town called Skej, and we didn't have any information really because there's no records left of like their address or where they lived. But we went there anyway, and we walked around. We went to an antique shop to see if we could find any old Jewish, paraphernalia. We walked around. We went to the Jewish cemetery there, which was empty. But I have to say, and I'm kind of rushing through this because I want to get to this point. I have to tell you that probably the most emotional I got the whole trip was walking on the streets of Skej. I grew up my whole life hearing about this town, right? My grandmother would talk about it a lot. That's where she lived. And seeing my father walking on the street there with all of us, and there are no Jews in Skej. I mean, there used to be 4,000 to 5,000 Hasidic Jews that lived there. There's no one left, obviously. I don't know. It's Poland is a big graveyard. It feels like just a huge Jewish graveyard. And Skej felt even more like that to me, and I just, did you ever imagine that you would be there?
No.
I feel like you were in shock kind of walking around.
I never imagined I would be walking in Skej. I wish we would have been able to track down her address. I know that the city doesn't look at all that it looked 80, 90 years ago, because don't forget that we're talking in the 30s and we're already in the 20s. So we're talking 90 years ago when my mother lived there, 100 years ago, when my mother lived there. So the town does not look at anything at all. But there were a few old buildings that you could somehow, with your imagination, start to picture what it was like, like no paved streets and, and maybe, I don't even think there were cars there. I mean, it was still horse and buggy, going on over there, old people, in the marketplace, peddlers. My great grandfather, he had a business, manufacturing thread, and my grandfather working at that, factory. So it was surreal. It was very surreal. And it was something that we felt that we needed to do. I needed to do. And it was, of course, very sad. The cemetery had nothing. All the tombstones were knocked over. They were broken, unkept. We couldn't find the key to the cemetery. No one knew what, when, where. My children, God bless them, climbed over the fence. I did not. My wife did not. We stood on the outside. But it was just sad to see. I mean, this town that Jews had lived for hundreds of years, gone. Yeah. Just gone. Just gone. And Ger, where was one of the great Hasidic courts of all time, not only of pre-war, of all time, was one of the most populous communities. Nothing. The shul that the Grand Rabbi of Ger davened in is intact. We couldn't get in. We looked through the window. We saw it's nothing really to see because it's bare. A couple of tables are still there. The cemetery of Ger, which housed two of the most luminary people in the Hasidic world, the founder of the Ger dynasty, the Chadosharim, his grandson, the Sfasemis. We went in there. There we found the key. Lady came and opened up the cemetery for us. We went in there. We prayed there, but it's very unkept. I was very shocked that Ger Hasidim around the world wouldn't fix this place up, but I guess they have no interest really, in going there. And again, it was just reiterated over and over and over again, this point that what once was is no more there. Yeah. It was a culture that is gone. Now you could say, it was later on when we went to Israel. You could say it was replanted in Israel because Ger now is huge and have thousands and thousands of followers, and they regenerated themselves. That is true. And a part of that is very, very real, that there are Haredim and Hasidim, like pre-war in Israel, but where the motherland, where we were there for hundreds of years, and we said Polin, which for two Hebrew words is here we will rest. Polin, we will rest here, we will live here. 3.3 million Jews lived in Poland before the war. 300,000 survived. 3 million were killed, or 2.9 million were killed. I mean, it's I don't know how can you describe it. But the next step was, to me, the hardest, because we went to Lodz, and in Lodz, that's where my mother went to the ghetto. after they rounded up all of the people from the surrounding towns, the Germans, and formed a ghetto. They made them build a wall around the ghetto. We saw the wall. We saw the ghetto. We know where my mother lived in the ghetto. And then we went to the train tracks that transported them from the ghetto to Auschwitz. Because at the end of 1944, the Nazis decided, okay, we're losing the war. We have to start liquidating all the ghettos. And they transported the few remaining Jews that were still alive in the ghetto to Auschwitz. Some stayed behind. They didn't want to go. When my aunt stayed, she was ultimately, I guess, killed in Lodz. And standing and walking on the train tracks, that my mother was there, and the cattle car that took her from Lodz to Auschwitz is there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to put my hand in and like just grab it and grab my grandfather and pull him out and pull my grandmother out. And it was just surreal. It was just a scene out of a movie, me standing on that very platform where they left and thinking to myself that had I been there, who knows, I would have been in the cattle car too. And if somehow I would have managed not to be in the cattle car, but to stand as a spectator on the side and see my mother in that cattle car with her parents and her sister and another 150 Jews that they packed into each car, was just too much. It was just too much. That was the
really
low
rough
point.
spot.
That was the low point for me.
Yeah.
I mean, to I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it's just,
you know
it's
what I
hard to
felt there?
describe.
You know what I felt over there? I think I said it to you while we were standing on that platform. And I just wish I could have said it to my grandmother, like, Bubby, just fight to survive, because look what's going to happen, right? Like, keep, don't give in, don't give up. I know you feel like, I don't know, this is what I was like feeling when I was standing there. Like, I know you feel that maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's too hard, but just keep fighting, because look at us. We're here. You have a big family. You have so many people after you, and you have multiple generations now that exist, and there's going to be more, please God. And like, I just wish I could say that to her at that moment, standing on that platform, because it just felt like I felt it even now in 2024, standing there, I felt just completely just dejected, the end, like you want to give up. And I don't know, maybe she heard us. Maybe she somehow heard that and was able to survive because of it. Because I don't know how I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she pulled herself through all of that.
One thing became clear: why people after the war did not want to deal with this. There were many survivors that just pushed it out of their minds on many different levels. Some rejected Judaism completely and just gave up their Judaism, came to America, changed their names, changed everything, didn't tell their children that they were Jewish, wanted nothing to do with Judaism. I could understand it. I can understand why.
Yeah.
I can understand why people became seriously religious, just poured themselves into religion, didn't want to deal with this, because when you start thinking about it, it just does not lead you to a good place.
Yeah.
It leads you only to a dark place of why, how could other people do this to people, and where was God?
And why to us?
Why? Yeah, why to us? And where was he?
Yeah.
I mean, if he claims that he cares for us and loves us and worries about us, and where we were loyal, and the Jews, they were no threat to Hitler.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the pictures of the people coming into Auschwitz, were poor and skinny, and then the laborers and women and children. These were not fighters. These were not revolutionaries. They didn't fight the Nazis.
Yeah, who were we bothering? Yeah,
they weren't bothering anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, so the question is, where was he? And unfortunately, there was in one of the bunkers in Auschwitz, it was written there by an inmate, "This is where God died."
Yeah.
This is where he died. And
I couldn't even think
about
that.
I can't blame if someone came out of that experience with that feeling. I couldn't. I remember when I was a kid and my uncle who didn't reject Judaism. He was very, very Jewish, and still belonged to an Orthodox shul even afterwards, but had a very difficult time. He kept his store open on Shabbos, and I remember trying to fight with him, on a philosophical, how could you not believe in God, and how could you not do this, and how could you not? And he looked at me like, with pity eyes, and said, he said, one day you'll understand. And as I grew up and I matured, and here I was, a kid trying to convince a Holocaust survivor to believe in God. And later on, I realized, it's not an intellectual exercise. It's not rational. I mean, these people were relating on a very, emotional, real existential level, and there was no arguing with them. It was this the experience could drive God from your heart, and I understand why many people didn't want to deal with this.
I want to talk about Warsaw with Jay, because Jay has actually spent time in Warsaw, and probably more than us. But I do want to say one thing just on that before we move on to Warsaw. I had a really hard time thinking about God the whole time I was in Poland. And every time I did think about God, I got angry and I just pushed it out of my head. And I said, I don't want to think about this right now. And I don't want to, I can't deal with this issue while I'm here, because I felt like it would lead me down a path that was just not a good, healthy path for myself. And I think it's something, just to be open and honest and vulnerable. Like, I think that it's something I'm going to have to spend a lot of time thinking about moving on from here, because I do have a lot of questions. I do have a lot of anger, I think. And I know I'm not the first person. I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the last person, but this is something that I'm going to have to deal with, because I'm very angry. I'm very angry at God, and being there, I couldn't get away from that. So we don't need to discuss that today. Maybe we'll save that for our sunflower episode, and we can delve into more of the theological issues around the Holocaust. But I just did want to share that was really hard for me. Every time God came into my head, I was like pushing it out.
Well, they say all religious people have crisis of faith at some point, and this is the quintessential the quintessential example of that.
This is hard. No, it's hard.
Yeah.
But Warsaw was already a big city. Warsaw is a metropolitan city. I mean, we don't have to describe it. It has 1.5 million people. It's built up. It's got skyscrapers. It has these fancy hotels, restaurants. I mean, it's a huge city. Warsaw took the brunt, of course, of the Nazi bombardment. I mean, they just bombarded and destroyed that city, and like many Eastern European cities after the war, rebuilt. Yeah. So going there, they showed us the ghetto, and of course, the ghetto in Warsaw was just incredible. I mean, it was big. They took 300,000 to 400,000 people and packed them into this little area, and. But you don't see anything. I mean, it's just they show you the wall, but next to the wall is you got a 17-story, right. Sheraton Inn. Okay, so what room were they in? And so we went to Milla 18. Milla 18, of course, made famous by the Leon Uris book about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, and we went there. There's a memorial there. It was very nice, and the stories are incredible. I mean, of a band of Jews that got together and fought this army. Of course, it didn't take the Nazis long, and they just burned down the ghetto, and everybody, in it, and then liquidated the ghetto. But the cemetery was something that shakes. I mean, they have a mass grave of 100,000 people that passed away in the ghetto. The Nazis allowed them just to dump them into this, common plot, this big plot, and they say there's about 100,000 people. So that was.
What was your impression, Jay, when you went to Warsaw?
It was interesting hearing you describe the rest of Poland and how they treated the Jewish history, or I guess the remnants of the culture. Because I thought in Warsaw they kind of treated almost exactly the opposite. I thought I felt like Warsaw did really an amazing job honoring the Jews that were there. They don't try to hide the ghetto. It's very well marked, and they have signs all over the area describing, what happened in different places, and the memorial of the Umschaplatz is beautiful. But the trains that took the the people in the ghetto to Treblinka. They've a really nice memorial there. You said Miwa 18 memorial, and I know you guys didn't get a chance to go to the Jewish museum.
No, we didn't do the museum
there,
right?
But the Jewish museum was great. I mean, it's a really modern museum. They really do. They did a great job with that. So, so it's interesting to hear your experience in the, because I've only ever been to Warsaw, but so it's interesting to hear your experience in the rest of the country, because I felt like in Warsaw they don't try to hide it. Now I don't know. I don't remember if they, how much they put the blame on themselves versus try to pass the blame, but they definitely don't try to hide the fact that there were atrocities there and that there was a thriving Jewish population in the area. So that was the thing that I liked about Warsaw, and I thought they did a nice job honoring the dead.
And a good restaurant.
It did.
Very good restaurant. Yeah,
it's true.
Restaurant.
I do want to say one thing about the memorial. It does.
Everything,
I know.
everything.
I do want to say one thing about the memorial, though. So at the Umschlagplatz, there's a memorial, and it has on it all the names. And it's what they did is they took the most common names of the Jews at the time, and they put it up there, right? Like I don't know how many names are, maybe 75 names are up there. And the first two names that caught my eye, my grandmother's name was Roja, and she had two siblings named Rachelka and Rachmiel. And all three of those names were like the first names that I saw. It was like really weird. We happened to just be standing kind of right by that section. And then I thought to myself, oh, and they had a sister Bella. I wonder if her name is there. Her name was up there. Then I started thinking, what about Chaya? Chaya is there. Leah is there, right? Then Goldie, my sister Goldie's name was there. Then I started thinking about my kids. All four of my kids' names were on that wall. It was so interesting because I have a son named Shimshon, which is not a very common, okay, my son David is the most common Jewish name, or, my son Shmuel is very common, but Shimshon is not a very common name. It was up on the wall. I couldn't believe it. And then Menachem Mendel, my other son, also both names, Menachem and Mendel. And I don't know, there was just something about that. And I said, this, I think what it meant to me is like, this story is my story. It's not about anyone else, right? I've been to many museums around the world that, are talking about other people or other cultures or other histories. And this place, this is my story. My family is in this story. Everywhere I turn, everywhere I look, from the names of the people to the history of where the towns we went to the customs that we follow, to the shuls. I mean, every single part of it is part of my story, my identity. And I can't get over it. I can't get past that. Like, I wasn't born there. This is the first time I've been there. I'm 44 years old. And it just felt like, in a way, like coming home in a weird way, but also a home that's stolen and not mine and doesn't belong to me. Because when I go to Israel, I also feel like I'm home, but in a nicer way, right? Like in a good way, because Israel feels like, oh, here, look at this. Like, it's on my people and my language. But in a weird way, Poland also felt like that, but just in a tragic way. And I didn't expect to feel that way at all. But somehow seeing all those names on the wall, it really drove it home for me.
Mm.
I see my father's jet lag is catching up to you, huh? I mean, we've only been back for 2 days.
It's you start to relive all of these memories, and again very heavy. Yeah. But I think that overall, like you said, ChayaLeah, and Jay said before, you know what, it's a part of our history. I think an important part of our history. I mean, I would suggest if you have any interest to go there. I mean, I have no dog in the fight to go or not to go, but I think if you want to see and feel what it was like, pre-war and what we lost, it's an interesting place to go to. But again, it's this idea of resurrecting. Now we had a culture. We lost the culture, but here we are. Yeah. We're alive. We're thriving. We're, Jews are in the world. We're almost back to the number pre-World War II numbers, of Jews. I mean, we're still a speck, a tiny speck of the population of the world, but we're here. Unlike the Assyrians and unlike the Babylonians and unlike everybody else, all those other great empires, the Roman Empire, the Nazis, of course, and all of those are gone. And we are still here and we exist. And not only do we exist, but we make a difference.
That's right.
I mean, look at us here in America. We're a small portion of the population, and yet they can't get enough of us.
Not only do we exist, we went from Poland, which is a big graveyard of Jewish life, to Israel, where we had dinner at a place called Pitmaster, where it's a kosher, block kosher, insane 7-course meat restaurant where you have 7 courses of meat. Okay, different ways.
Oh my God,
different ways: lamb, steak.
It's a vegetarian nightmare.
I mean, you can't help but stand in there and think like, I mean, not only did we survive, we're freaking thriving. I mean, like we're really living. I'm gonna
go to Israel just to go to that restaurant.
No,
I don't even.
I did everything else.
I don't care. I don't care about anything else. Yeah.
That was such a funny way to like end our trip doing that, because
forget the hotel.
Like, I felt. Yeah.
Forget the scene with the patriarchs. I'm just going to Pitmaster.
I'm telling you. Pitmaster.
Oh my God. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, listen, that's really the lesson. I mean,
that's our revenge.
It's our revenge. And it's I'm proud to be a Jew. That's all I'll say. I'm really proud to be a Jew after this trip.
So you guys, are you glad you did it?
I'm very glad. I mean, aside from
it was a trip of a lifetime.
It was
really a trip of a lifetime to be able to finally do something that you wanted to do for a very long time, to do it together with your family. I going myself and even going with my wife would not have been the same experience.
Yeah.
It was being there with my children and us together and experiencing all of these things together so we can talk about it, in the future. It was a trip of a lifetime. It was worth every penny.
It's awesome. That's great.
It was. And just to end
by
off.
By the way, talking about worth every penny, I want to make sure that everybody puts in their expense account, because I'm putting in for what I spent and I want my money back.
Oh, really? Okay,
I want everybody to feel the pain equally.
I'll end off with one funny but sad story. I'm not going to tell the whole story at length very quickly, but my father and me and my sister and my brother, who all live in Long Beach, flew home from Israel together. And when we got to the airport and we went through security and we went through the whole thing,
well, why are you telling?
At security?
Wait, why are you telling?
At security,
have this trauma again.
Well, she started, so now she's got to finish.
There was this moment where my father, who was in front of us, went through like the person who checks your, your passport to let you go to the security line. He got through, but then they stopped me and my 2 siblings, right? My sister and brother. And they told us that we had to go to a whole separate section of the airport. And the 3 of us ended up having to leave. And my father didn't understand what was going on because he was a little ahead, and he turns around and he sees us going away, and it was late and the flight was going to leave soon. And it was this weird, almost like I saw the trauma. I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out on it, but like I saw the trauma on my father's face of like the selection and being separated from his children. And my sister said, she's like, don't they know at Ben Gurion that they should be sensitive and not separate parents from their children? I'm like, we're 40 years old. I'm 44. You're 43. What do you mean? And she was like, look at him. He's about to pass out from panic. And he couldn't reach us and they wouldn't let us out. So we ended up going to a whole different security area where we went through we're big threats, I guess, because my sister, anyway, but my father was calling our cell phones and they wouldn't let us answer, and it took time. And that whole experience was just such a funny way to end the trip in a way, because you looked
what did you do
distraught
that triggered the security at Ben Gurion? Thank God.
I have no idea.
It must have been something I must have said that my children are members of Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Maybe that
might have been it.
Oh, is that what you did?
That triggered it.
That might have been it.
Wow. You were hoping for a whole row to yourself, I think, on the flight.
That was it. Well,
They probably heard ChayaLeah works at the college and thought she was a member of JVP and said, "Oh,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Let's make her life hell."
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. And of course, if you have comments or questions, feel free. We have an email address.
You can watch this all the time because it's on Facebook.
Yeah, tough. If they are seeing this, they know.
No, but you can tell your friends. I'm just saying.
Oh, I could tell my friend. I'll tell my friends. I'll send an email. Yeah.
Okay.
But we have an email address, edJEWcationpod@gmail.com. And if this is your first time listening to us, check out our other episodes. We have about 25 episodes, and we're going to continue doing weekly episodes. And if you want to write a comment, we'd love to hear from you. But thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
Till next time.
Good night.